Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is March 11th, 2025. It is about 4:20 in the afternoon. Is that right? Yeah, I guess so. Daylight savings. Get used to this. We are going to talk about, I'm going to hand out a draft of two documents. One is not a draft. It's the actual piece. This is a small page of what the governor recommended, one-time expenditures and transfers from the general fund. So this is nothing in the base. It's just the one-time. And then the other large piece of paper, it's got two columns, and one side is all the committee asks, and the other side is things that we've heard from other organizations and the public. It is not on our committee page. This is a draft. All of this information is publicly available on our committee page. We have simply put it together in a compilation. I started doing this myself in self-defense because I couldn't hold all this stuff in my head, and we've never done this before. And then I showed it to Maria, and she said, "Oh, that looks like a good idea." And then she took it even further. And then over the break, she put all the committee dollars in there. And so we've been making some changes. We don't have anything, Nigel, but nice to see you.
Sorry, I'm actually looking for a percent page. This might be things.
He's up in healthcare.
Thank you.
Anyway, and Maria's been changing things as we have gone along and heard the committees, but it's still a draft form. This will never be 100%, but it's a good start, I think. So I'm going to hand out, these are the small pages, and then get the big ones. So did I finish saying this is a compilation? I should say that. So it's all, anybody who wants to can put this together on from all the information on the website. And Maria. Oh, yes. So this is unduplicated. We are not repeating numbers.
I think that's yours.
Can I hand out more things?
Okay.
You don't want it? So the short one is the easy one, and it's straight out of the governor's budget book. But so what you're going to see here on the big pages is on the left-hand side is all the committees. So you see what agriculture did, commerce, corrections institutions, et cetera. Sometimes there are things that say they agree because they showed up already in the right-hand column, which is the advocates or other departments like the AG's office or secretaries of state. So this goes on for 5 pages. The bottom line is that the total unduplicated requests of everybody, as far as we can tell so far, is $291 million. Just on the very back of page 5. And it was bigger yesterday because Transportation's recommending allocating 1/3 of the purchase and use tax to the transportation fund, but that's 52.5 million, but it's not general fund, it's education fund. So we took that out. So that got us below the 300 million mark.
Hey.
Did you feel? So we cut out 52 million right there. It was painless. And so some of the
How
things.
much is 1/3 of the purchase and use?
$52.5 million
That they want.
to take out of the education fund.
22 million that.
Right.
Wow.
So if you take this out of the education fund, you'll raise property taxes on the other side. So I'm not sure that was going to be a situation. So what Maria did is where there were committees that prioritized, which wasn't everybody. But when we get to the second long page and you see healthcare, one-time request, you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is exactly what you talked to us about. So you can get a sense when you're looking at it of that information. General and housing had tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. So you can get a sense from them. And then human services, H+ is highest. M is medium, H is high. So some committees did that.
So we make a nice template for them for next year. It's gonna be a lot better.
Well, we've never done this in the 5 years I've been in the committee, but now we can see all in one place, everything. So I'm kind of excited about this. We started a new tradition here. Because I don't know about you, but I can't hold this all in my head. Maria, you have a couple things you want to mention about this?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, you'll see a couple of things highlighted. The stuff that's in orange, those are the rate increases and the big numbers, and we, when I'm staff, we need to go through them and reconcile and make sure that we're not duplicating. So I just put them in highlight so that you know that those numbers may change.
Are they included in that total?
So,
Yeah.
Oh.
So the ones, okay, so when you look at the column, both columns, if they have a number out to the right, those are included in the total. But in a lot of the committee recommendations, there's just a notation about what they're recommending, because some of the recommendations are already included in the advocate request. But I need to reconcile the rate increases, because that's where it gets a little bit,
Right.
it's a little confusing to me. So in any case, that's why they're highlighted. And then you'll see one other thing in yellow, the AEL, the adult learning, that's a plug number. I'm sure it's, fairly close, but we'll get an exact number in the morning from the administration.
So these are the general fund
Yes.
dollars.
all
So
that-
some of them obviously go into global commitment. and-
So I have a note where in the note, you'll see scrunchie, sometimes I change the font so they fit, yes. But it's small, and that'll tell you the GC number.
Right, so all of this is general fund money. And so there's 300, almost 300 of the class.
Can I ask, Mara, when you say the advocate group up here,
Yeah.
are they scattered to other places or is that just
So it's just in that column that's off to the right.
These were either, like the Secretary of State is its own advocate, but isn't in the governor, so they had.
treasurer's office?
And there's no, right, so they are all over here, so when, and then this is all from the public hearings. And also, the 2 public hearings, we also have legislative hearings if there was something that was different. So we started with that because that's the information we had first, that's how I started. And then we got the committee letters before we went on break, and then we had, so that's why, so Maria went through, you can imagine going through all the committee letters, first of all, figuring them out, then figuring out if they were in the advocate side already or not, so that we could unduplicate. And she and I have been going back and forth for a few days now and, finding little things here and there. So, it's probably 90%, 95%, I don't know, maybe 98, who knows? But it's close enough that you get the idea.
It's great. Maria, there are some items in here that don't have numbers.
Yes, that's right.
And maybe elsewhere.
So I didn't want to duplicate things, and so, for instance, let's see,
How about if we did line 35,
line
the
25.
State Board of Ed?
Yeah, State Board of Education. So, the Education Committee recommended this 488,000.
Right.
But we have that on the column to the right, the State Board of Education, because they came in and testified. They're on Zoom and they testified to the same amount. So it's on that list.
So it's mentioned in the committee because the committee supported it,
Okay.
but the numbers only counted once.
Yeah, it's on line 16 on the right, the advocate that said State Board of Education 488,852.
Yeah.
So I didn't want it to be too confusing, but maybe it'll be a little. confusing.
We'll evolve over time, I think, but, it's hard. And so the 5 million, for example, for the FQHCs was the advocates, because that's where we heard it first, and then Teresa came in and talked, or Alyssa came in, whoever, and talked about needing the money for the, so probably mentioned in healthcare. In fact, it may be in here twice. That may not have been what we had before.
So, those are some of the things that we need to reconcile.
Right.
Just because I didn't have time to sit down or hear with Nolan. If possibly could be correct on that. We'll find out.
Yeah,
It's a great first start.
I think it's a great first start.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So with, huh?
It's helpful.
I think so.
Aggregated in one place.
Well, that's because we end up being so siloed, you know, every committee does their thing, and it doesn't matter if I tell all the committee chairs we don't have enough money, they all think, well, committee chairs will be seen as too.
It would be nice if we actually had all the committees present their things in exactly the same template format.
You know, I have thought that too in this committee, and then the issue is kind of that they don't, their information isn't similarly done. So we're getting more people doing charts, which is really helpful, I think, having human services and healthcare. You know, could Commerce do the same thing with a chart? They could probably do the same thing with a chart.
I think everyone could, because you had,
Yeah.
you know, governors recommend. And
Right.
what they, would they approve or not? Or do you want more money and what it's for?
Right.
You already have a language section, so if they wanted to explain stuff in the language section, they all could. do
Right,
that.
and then they, like Teresa did, so, I think we're working towards that. I also wanted to be really careful this year, Ways and Means also does a chart. Last year, we just about killed our JFO and Ledge Council staff with their committee letters, and I really didn't want to do that for them this year.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
But I think it's a great idea though to have
Have a chart.
responses in a
Right.
similar way.
So we should work on what we think a
Yeah.
template, we can do that now, I mean, there's no reason why or after the budget's out, we can
And
work on it.
Erin has mentioned,
Think
she
we
has
should
some ideas too, so
Do
we're
it
gonna,
before the governor.
I think at least one of those committee letters had a chart that was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, there've been a couple that have good charts.
So
Yeah.
they could make these.
So we could start with that as the template and then expand it to what we need, so.
The committees spend an awful lot of time on this and it competes with crossover.
Yes,
You know what I mean? It kind of compresses them, so.
yeah, I mean, I've always felt the more that we can
Yeah.
sort of institutionalize and make things consistent that way. It's better. It's been a challenge in past years, and maybe you remember this, Dave, too, because committees like do it their, you know, they do their thing and they're, I don't know, creative license or whatever, but I think we're maybe now at a place where we can say, here's the template.
Yeah, I spent 10 hours on the big budget last year, 10 hours
Hmm.
legislative time before crossover. And it's ridiculous
Yeah.
because you have people who don't know. I had 9 new people on my committee, so they didn't know the issues.
Mhm.
And that's after the 6 hours we spent on BAA. So
Right,
you're talking about a full week of legislative time
right,
to come up with a letter, then to be told automatically, and I'm not dissing us, but to say, no, don't ask for money. You know, it's a combination of a waste of time and also a helpful guide. Because people are coming up with these suggestions, these asks. The fact that one can argue that the governor's budget is $200 million off of what's needed based on what people that, I know that's always the case.
you can make lots of, yeah,
It's just that idea of what, you know, in my portfolio, when I see, you know, the Department of Agriculture asking for the things that now the advocates are asking for, and the Department of Agriculture may come in and say, we support all of these asks. But when we presented this to the administration, we were told no. And so that's a rock and a hard place to try to understand. And so I'm anticipating that, you know, I don't know if you read in the paper that because of Bar Hill, because
oh,
of the
yeah,
tariffs,
yeah.
they had made labels for, I don't know, a palletized order that was supposed to go to Quebec, which was canceled. So they have a pallet of, at least a pallet of Bar Hill gin that they can't sell.
or they have to relabel in order to sell it, which is another cost.
Well, sure, because they have to, how do you relabel something that's been relabeled? You have to pour it out and you have to figure out a way.
Right.
Or they can donate it to us because the next 2 weeks are gonna be on.
There.
Here we are, ready to help.
Hear that, Mario?
To your point, I agree. I mean, some committees spent enormous amount of time putting their requests together. On the other hand, in fairness to Robin, she'd been warning the committee chairs since January, there is not a lot of extra money, if any extra money.
Oh, I get that. I mean, I understand the process and I understand the, you know, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat here, but the idea of having legislators who don't know what the process is and then responding to any administration's version of what to do with that money is, from a policy committee's perspective, there's almost like, why do we bother? And then the other part of it is I told my committee, I told agriculture in particular, write it all down because we may find $200,000 on June 1st to slip into the budget that would help something. And if it's not written down, then we're not going to respond to it or we're not going to remember. So and again, it sounds more, it's more critical of the system that we work in. Because again, as a policy person, I would have rather taken those 16 hours and done different policy rather than try to do the policy. It's like doing the policy while you're driving and you're educating people in the first year of their time on that committee. When you're just like saying, hey, I've worked on VHCE for 15 years. We should just say that this is the right number and everybody in January is gonna go, okay, you know, until they learn later.
Right. And it was true. I mean, this is what happened here with the budget adjustment, right? I told you, you guys who were new here started in the middle. Because you were here for last year's budget and that's the cycle that we're in. And, you know.
What we don't communicate very well, you know, Teresa did it a little bit in one area, but it would be great when you're asking for something, if the governor has a list too. We can disagree on what the priorities are, but it's the same box, okay? Unless you want to raise tax, okay? So if you agree it's on the same box, then, you know, the administration put, you know, let's say 15 million to be there, the housing committee. They say, that's nice to do, but I'd rather take 10 of that million on this housing. Sure. That would be really, really helpful to us.
Yes, and everybody's an advocate, so the administration put forward a perfect budget based on the testimony we received. There wasn't really anything wrong with it.
From the agencies.
Yes, but then you have a conversation with a department that says, well, we were really asking for all this money, but our bosses decided that it wasn't a priority. So if they come in here and testify, they can say, sure, we can support, we have a $20 million ask to have a relief fund for farmers.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. It's $20 million. They can handle it, but they don't have $20 million.
Right.
And so it's just this, you know.
Well, it ends up being a learning experience for everybody. And yeah, there's not much we can do structurally, as you've said, you know, people come in brand new and then they're thrown this budget and they're thrown. That's the way it
Go
is.
through the same cycle. They get all the asks and they have to funnel it through to make the numbers work.
Right, so they've chosen their priorities.
In there.
Right, and then we get to decide what are our priorities and where.
And their choice is then to do things in a certain way. And I mean, that's what we're, and I will give us the grace of, this is probably the first budget that doesn't have substantial amount of federal money or ARPA money in it. And so this is kind of a horrible return to the austerity budgeting of, you know, post 2000. So.
Yeah. So here we are, take a look. You know, I don't know yet what we're gonna be able to spend. not $290 million or $300 million, but maybe between 20 and 50. I'm making this up. I don't know. I'll be talking, with air traffic control about this as well. But just, you now have the picture, not just of your own portfolio, but all of it, which is what we need to look at as a group. And so we need to be thinking about, if we only have 50 million, we only have 20 million, where are we going to spend it?
Where's the biggest bang for the buck?
Right, and sometimes some of these little ones get in, often they do, because they actually make a big difference. We did something one year for $40,000 for a driver's ed car in the Northeast Kingdom, so the kids could get their licenses, and it was,
Thank you.
it's $40,000, but it made a huge difference.
It's a huge difference.
Huge difference. So, there'll always be some of those. So it isn't
Oh, yeah.
always, and when you look at this, think to yourself, what if we did half of this? What if we did 1 million and not 5? Or, are there ways, it isn't all or nothing. So this is to get the juices going and
We
start
need
thinking about
politicians in order to make this program work.
it. We can all.
We all do.
We can all do that. So, anyway, this is a start for you to all think about. Thank you, Maria, for all your help on this as well. Appreciate it. And, we're gonna start at 9 tomorrow with, back on the bill, the committee bill. We'll just look through some of the rest of the letters. I mean, you've got a lot of it right here too, but we'll take a look. And then if there's more things that you can close, we'll start closing things out. Okay, let's go off.